Morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Peel. I am the author of Planet on Purpose, the course leader for the Global Purpose Expedition, and a certified purpose guide. So today we're going to talk about the third cry of the soul. So we talked about the first two, and that's unfulfilling work and unfulfilling love. Now, the first two you can't ignore, right? Because if your job sucks and your love life sucks, like that's painful. It's in your face. So soul is often telling you, hey, go do something that you're aligned with. Go be with somebody that's going to call you into your greatness. Like that's, if those two things aren't there, like your soul is going to be knocking on the door. Now this third one, this one we're feeling from a different place. This actually comes from outside of us. So this is the cry of the world. This third cry of the soul is actually the cry of the world. So you don't have to spend too much time looking at the news before you get deeply present to that things aren't working. We're in basically political, economic, cultural, and environmental freefall as a species. This doesn't mean there's not great things happening, that there's not great works of art, that there isn't inspiring reform happening, and nonprofits and activists, and the human spirit is alive and well in pockets. But as a system, we're finding that like literally there's a cry. The future is crying. The unborn are crying. My children, my children's children are saying, what the F? Are you guys just going to sit here and order off Amazon and Netflix and chill while the world burns? And so this is, we all hear this uniquely, right? Because it's almost ubiquitous, meaning like everywhere, you're encountering TV and news and social media feeds, but saying like how messed up the whole thing is. Now, your skeptic, that part of you that tries to like kill all possibility, kill all passion, all soul, might be saying, look, well, that's just the way it is. At least I'm gonna enjoy myself. You may have heard that from yourself a couple times. I know I've said it. It can also say that, so well, what if I put myself in action? Like it's still not going to make a difference. It's not going to change global warming. It's not going to change political corruption. It's not going to change how terrible our schools and our media are. And there's some truth to that. And in a sense, we don't have the right to ask that question. Meaning, soul does not have the right to ask that question. That's a concern of the ego. So Wendell Berry, amazing poet, philosopher, essayist, he was interviewed by Bill Moyers, and Bill Moyers was like, what do you say to the environmentalists who are there and present with the science that says maybe it is too late? Maybe humanity is on a one-way trip to extinguishing itself. And Wendell said, we don't have the right to ask that question. What we do have the right to do is to ask ourselves, are we doing everything we need to do? Are we living our values? If we do fail, if we don't manage to save humanity, did we do it in a way that was befitting of what is in our hearts, is in our souls? And so the soul and the skeptical voice go to battle when it comes to the world. Like the skeptical voice tries to insulate the ego from the horror, and it's freaking horror. Like there's horror happening right now in Houston. The East Coast is getting beaten up by tropical storms and hurricanes. Mexico had an earthquake. They're pulling bodies out of the wreckage. There's horror everywhere. Not everywhere, but in many places, right? And our skeptic tries to justify. I notice my skeptic does this. Well, that's Mexico's fault for having, bad building codes. And I'm like, what kind of jerk says that? I'm not allowing myself to feel by making up that reason. Oh, well, it's Mexico's fault for having, bad building codes. Like all these people are dying and suffering, and that's what you're going to do. That's what your soul is telling you to do. And so when you start to listen to that, it doesn't mean you listen indiscriminately to suffering. That would literally be like a one-way ticket to the loony bin, right? If all you did was pay attention to all the suffering, you'd go nuts. but you got to listen to the suffering that's yours to listen to. So the cry of your soul that is a match for a cry out there. So for example, like, I grew up, fairly privileged upbringing, but what was missing, what I was starving for was soul initiated adults, like elders, kings, queens, people to bless you, to say that I see you, I see what you're up to, what's in your heart, what you're great at, and here's my reflection. Go take this training program, go do this school, go travel here, go do this sort of thing. And so that's what has me uniquely attuned to the cry, is because it's a cry that I know myself, one that's missing. So I'm out to change culture. I'm out to ensoul human culture so that we honor and bless all children as having unique souls, as having a big game to play. And so that's my invitation to you, is to listen to the cry that is yours. Like, how is the world saying, hey, knucklehead, get off the bench. It's time. You may or may not be successful. We won't know that. But what we will know is if you did something about it. And so this third cry of the soul, is the world, and listen to it in a way that your soul can hear and respond to. So to begin that, I encourage you to join us for the Global Purpose Expedition. This is a 10-week deep dive immersion into your soul. So we're going to light up all 10 aspects of your purpose, one of which is that call, that cry, like what out there in the world is calling you to transform your life, to make your highest contribution, and to fulfill on your vision. We're going to light up all 10 aspects of your purpose, and we're going to begin to distinguish what's in the way. So that skeptical voice, that critical voice, that image consultant, that risk manager. And so you start to see actually what's soul and what's not. And then we put you into action with the Purpose Project. So beginning to answer that call, hear that cry, and to know yourself as somebody who's doing something about it. So I invite you to join us for the Global Purpose Expedition. That's globalpurposeexpedition.com. You can also email us at info@planetpurpose if you'd like a scholarship. We have a number of scholarships for folks who we're calling emerging leaders between 25 and 35, folks who are heroes, so public servants. These are first responders, teachers, nurses, activists, and also for folks that we're calling unstoppable, folks who have faced tragedy, dysfunction, discrimination, and are out to change it. So join us on this amazing expedition. Take care.